Okay, today I am quite excited because I'm going to get to fly my first single-seater on Winch, and also I'm getting to fly the Pilatus B-4, an aircraft that I've had my eye on for quite some time. A lot of people speak very highly of this plane, and I am very, very much looking forward to flying it.
Too slow. Fitted undercarriage, down and up according to the placard, speed and trim 55.
So even though I'm still quite new to winch launching, even I've had higher launches than this. So this wasn't a particularly high launch. I ended up getting to about 1,200 feet. It was perhaps a few factors at play. There wasn't much wind around today. A nice headwind can often help to get you up a little bit higher. And of course there are a few other things that can help with a good winch launch. Of course it doesn't really matter. As I got off at the end of this winch launch, as you'll see, I've flown almost straight into some lift. And there often is lift, I find, at the end of the runway or just after you release. I believe this can often be caused by the winch itself being a trigger and therefore creating a bit of a thermal, and in this case there certainly was one. So it's always well worth just heading straight ahead just for a little bit before you start venturing off looking for some lift under some clouds, because as you can see in this case it has worked out well for me. Now this thermal ended up taking me up to almost 6,000 feet. It's just fantastic, of course. However, along the way I encountered a very strange noise. A noise that made me incredibly worried in the beginning. And you can hear that noise starting now. So of course my first reaction is panic, but I quickly calm myself and I ask myself a few basic questions like, do I still have full control over the aircraft? Yes, I have full control. The stick is free and unhindered. Everything is moving the way it should be. I can't feel any vibrations coming through the stick at all, or the aircraft really at all. So everything feels fine there. I do check the squelch. We had been playing with the squelch earlier, and they did mention that sometimes it plays up. I mean, I didn't think it was that. It was very, very loud inside the cockpit, so even though I didn't think it was coming out of the speaker, I just thought it would be worth checking. It wasn't the squelch. And although you can't see it, my head is looking around quite vigorously. I can see the parcel shelf behind me, where the battery is. I was checking to see if maybe something in there had come loose. I was checking the wing pins, making sure that a wing wasn't about to drop off, and just anything else in there that might be moving or come loose. And then after a few seconds it hit me. A pilot had said to me earlier that morning, be aware that the gap seal tape is notorious for coming off on this aircraft, and when it does, it often makes a hell of a noise. And yes, sure enough, that's exactly what it was. It was a piece of gap seal tape that had come loose and was flapping against the fuselage, right next to my head, and near the camera as well. So, and being a full metal aircraft, it really does make quite a hell of a noise inside there. But after a while, I believe it ripped off or something like that, because it did stop. It didn't last too long. And as I say, I had considered going down, but I still had full control over the aircraft. It still felt smooth and responsive, and once the noise stopped, I decided it was well worth just to carry on. And of course there's going to be people that are going to enjoy disagreeing with that decision, and yes, if the noise had continued, I most certainly would have gone down, and if it had come back, then yes, I would have reconsidered going down. But the noise didn't come back for the rest of the flight, and so I felt fairly confident staying up. So once all the dramas were behind me and I'd had a bit of time to get used to the aircraft, I was so pleasantly surprised by how nice this plane flies. It is just a pleasure to be in. For an older aircraft that was manufactured from around the mid-60s to mid-70s, this plane still holds its own. It is just lovely to be in. Its thermal's great, it's incredibly responsive, and just a beautiful aircraft for its age. I really enjoyed flying this. It's an all-metal aircraft, 15-meter wingspan, and I think this plane flies better than some of the glass ships that I've flown. If you ever get an opportunity to fly a Pilatus B-4, I would highly recommend that you go for it. So this thermal ends up taking me to 8,000 feet. I feel like that's enough for the day. I generally like to stop at around 8,000 feet, because if I go to 8.5, I end up having to contact Melbourne Centre and letting them know I'm entering Class E airspace, and I feel like I've had enough excitement for the day, so that's it for me. I'm now going to start getting ready. Now, as much as I absolutely love flying at this club, there is one thing you have to be very cautious of, and that is the fact that this is an active farm. That means that the paddock that we fly out of can have cattle in it from time to time, and today it does. It's got cows in it. This means we need to be very cautious of where they are. And as you'll hear as I make my radio call, I'm a little hesitant to request 2-3 left, because I can see the herd of cows is right down at the end of it. So I decided it's okay, I'm going to be able to fly over top of them and it'll be alright. But then you'll hear me having to make a change, because I see 3 cows wander out of the grass and onto the middle of the runway, pretty much where I was planning on pulling up. So we make a bit of a change and everything's okay, but these are some of the things that you have to be very cautious of when you're flying in a place like this.
55. Tower rank traffic, this is Vita Whiskey Quebec November, downwind for runway 23 left, tower rank. Tower rank traffic, runway change to 23 right, tower rank, 23 right.
as you can see on the left, there are a lot of cows in the long grass and a few at the end of the runway, and these obviously weren't a concern. Unfortunately, the camera didn't pick up the ones that had wandered onto the runway, but by the time I got out, there was about 5 cows on that runway on the left-hand side, so I definitely made the right choice not landing on the left.